Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 122, Trust in Nature, which was recorded on the equinox as I was wrapping up my Asia trip. And that, of course, has been the theme throughout the last 2 months, trust in nature. And along with that, some lovely themes and insights regarding balance came in honor of the equinox. Enjoy the episode.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I am your host, Renata Maniaci, here to remind you that you are an infinite spiritual being having a temporary and non-infinite human experience here on lovely planet Earth. Make the most of it. This is the never-ending season, Season 7, Heaven on Earth, and this is episode 122, Trust in Nature. And I am coming at you from the very last full day of quite a long travel through Asia. Well, not as long as some. I met a Kiwi who's traveling for 14 months, so that's not quite me. But nevertheless, it is the March 21st equinox. I'm recording this from Galle, Sri Lanka, and tomorrow I leave on my journey to head back west. And without further ado, let's just jump right into the episode, shall we? Are you ready? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I request your presence, guidance, and support with this episode. I invoke the light of the divine within me. I am a clear and perfect channel. Light is my guide, highest possible good, and only good is allowed. Please allow me to know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. And please allow this episode to reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. And why trust in nature? Well, that honestly seemed to be the overall theme of the last 7 weeks for me. Starting right from when I landed in India, taking me through Nepal to Bhutan, back to India, and then down here to Sri Lanka. And as some of you may have heard in a previous episode, one night while I was in Nepal, we were sitting around a fire on a short trek that I was doing, and I asked everyone what is something that they live by, what's like kind of a rule that they live by. And with no hesitation, the man who owned the eco lodge that we were staying at said, trust in nature. And it's not the first time that I've heard that. Actually, it's something that my teacher says a lot, or that the essence of that, essentially. But it so perfectly encapsulates the last 7 weeks of my travels, is that this part of the world, even though the countries are so very different from each other, they really are very nuanced and unique in their own ways. But the level of trusting in nature is just different here. And actually, if I think about it, we have different ways of trusting in nature in the West that maybe some visitors from over here would think is a whole different way of trusting in nature, trusting in the divine. But I wanted to highlight this on the last eve of my travels. And it is also the equinox, which for me is always a really special day. Equinox literally means equal night. So equal night and equal day. And it's before we start getting more light during the day, at least in the northern hemisphere, and a little less light in the southern hemisphere. But it's a special moment of balance. And as I evolve and grow and continue to learn and continue to remember, balance is a much deeper thread that I feel like this planet is moving towards than we have any conscious knowledge of, day-to-day knowledge of. I'm coming to understand, at least for myself, that we're attempting to move away from the polarization of anything, into more balance. And that doesn't mean that the polar opposites or the opposites themselves, it doesn't mean that they're wrong necessarily, but there can't be one without the other. And if one is taking precedence over the other, it's unbalanced. And we need to move more into balance to move forward in our evolution on this planet in all respects. Balance with nature, balance with each other, balance with gender, balance with race, balance with politics, balance with the material and the spiritual. Right now, the material is far outweighing the spiritual on this planet, and it's evident. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what trusting in nature looks like for me as I've been traveling through Sri Lanka before I maybe touch back on this balance. In Sri Lanka, the dogs trust in nature so much that they sleep in the middle of the road. They just trust that none of the cars or trucks or tuk-tuks are going to hit them. And I laugh every single time I see a dog just miss a wheel. It just doesn't move. The wheel is 2 inches away from it and it doesn't even budge. And it's just for me, it's the ultimate image here in this country of trusting in nature. And it's not just that. That's just what I've kind of landed on for this moment, for this part of my trip. The Sri Lankan people, from what I can tell, and of course, I always, these are such generalizations, and I've only been here for 2 weeks. I know that every country I've been to has such beautiful differences, and Sri Lanka is no exception. These people are sweet and kind and really innocent, loving people, always ready to help you with anything. And that's not just foreigners or tourists, it's Sri Lankans amongst themselves. I can just see people asking for directions or how do you do this and it's just so readily given and available. I don't know if that has to do with just their basic nature. The majority of this country is Buddhist. It's an island, so there's this, it's such a cliche, but there is such a interesting island life feel here, even though it's a bigger island, but there is an island life feel. It's a little bit laid back, always ready for a laugh, fairly relaxed. There's a noticeable lack of stress. And that might sound strange considering that this country has been going through a significant economic downturn in the recent years. And that is known and it's felt, but I didn't pick up on a overly stressful energy. Now, I didn't spend any time in Colombo, which is the largest city and also the capital of Sri Lanka, but I spent time in several other places. And of course, all of these are just my fleeting, passing observations, but that it's yet another different but still similar, same but different, that's Thailand, example of trusting in nature. And this whole trip has been categorized by that. And as I guess I'm reflecting here on my last real night of this journey, this mission, some would call it a vacation. I wouldn't, but that's okay. I guess on some levels it is. All of those things. I'm looking back and asking for help to integrate any keys and codes and downloads and insights and guidance and breakthroughs that I've acquired. One thing that this trip has made me want to do on my next trip is to plan less. And don't get me wrong, I really loved everything that I did, everyone that I met. But I felt like because I know this place so little and that it's so different from the culture that I'm used to, I felt more comfortable planning, but leaving very little room for spontaneity in the end. And one of the things that I'm picking up from this tenet of trusting in nature is spontaneity is just as important as planning, especially when we're talking about all of this on the equinox, this balance. This is a moment of balance on the planet, and it permeates all areas. It's not just balance of light and dark on the physical scene level. It's deeper than that, and it makes it easier just for this time, just for this moment, for us to be more balanced in all aspects if we want that, and also maybe just for us to take a moment and ask for that balance within us. It just means being able to not live at one extreme of anything. It's that simple and that difficult. There's so many examples that I could give just from my small own life in the past 5 years, 10 years of things where I would have been considered an extreme on one end of whatever. And there's a lot of other things in my life and about me and my personality and my being that is pretty balanced. But of the things that were showing an extreme or had a aptitude for being at one extreme, many of those things have come to the middle. And for some of those things, it swung the complete opposite extreme before balancing out in the middle or coming closer to a neutral. And I think that's normal. And like a really, like, if you're sitting here, like, what are we talking about? We're talking about anything. Let's say I have an extreme love of chocolate and an extreme hate of vanilla, right? We're just talking about ice cream flavors. That's it. Maybe this is a bad example because I'm not telling you that you need to like chocolate and vanilla. Just an example. But you understand that to be so on one end of something without considering or understanding the other extreme or allowing the other extreme, it's not right. It's not correct for the most part. And it's definitely not balanced. I'm not talking about evils. I'm not talking about violence or anything like that. I'm talking about that this universe and this planet is created in a dichotomy, and that in those things, nature itself is made of both spiritual and material, light and dark, within and without, all of these things. A male aspect, a female aspect, a masculine, a feminine. This is just the truth. This is universal law. This is looking at the truth of all nature. And so it's like if you picked one of every one of those things that was meant to be the best, that's not the truth. You can't just say, for example, the material, the light, and the inside, those are the best. And we have to ignore the spiritual, the dark, and the external, right? So that's kind of what we're getting at here. And I'm sensing that there are different examples popping in for all of you. An obvious example is politics, right? I don't want to talk about politics. Who does? But it's wrong to say that one of those parties, in the case of the United States, is fully correct and the other one is fully incorrect. It's just not possible. And so this day of balance all around the world, doesn't matter which part. That's why I love the equinoxes. I love the solstices. Many of you know that the summer solstice is one of my favorite days, as is the winter solstice. But the special thing about equinoxes is that it's the same everywhere. Because when it's summer solstice in one part of the world, it's winter solstice in the other part. And with the equinoxes, it's all balanced. Equal night, equal day. And there's just something magical about that. I even want to say a few requests for all of us listening too, just about balance and awareness. Masters and angels, I request that you help all of us to be balanced on all levels of our being, and help us please to be made aware of where we are out of balance. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. There's something really special about that word for some reason, balance. I guess it's because you can look at it from so many levels. You can look at it from an emotional standpoint, a physical standpoint. We need balance in our lives. We can't just sit all the time, just like we can't walk all the time. You need both. You can't just eat all the time, and you can't just not eat all the time. You can't just sleep all the time, or you can't just be awake all the time. You need balance in all of these things. And emotional balance, right? You can't be happy all the time. You can't be angry all the time. And some people are, right? That's a characteristic of some people, but even to be healthy in that sense, there needs to be balance. Now, knowing me, I'm assuming you can all guess where I'm going with the spiritual aspect of ourselves. For so many people, the material far outweighs the spiritual aspect of people's lives. And there's some on the planet where the spiritual far outweighs the material. And I'm here to say I don't think that's healthy either. Well, maybe I wouldn't say it's healthy. I just won't say it's balanced. It's not balanced. So say you have a monk or nuns or monks devoted fully to spirituality. Now, don't get me wrong. I would never say that they shouldn't be doing that, because the truth is there's so many more people on the planet who are material focused than spiritually focused. So I believe that people who are meditating for huge majorities of their life on a big picture, on a big scale, they're actually helping more to balance the planet because of the just egregious focus on materialism in this world. But on a personal level, might they not be better in themselves, in their own selves, to be more balanced, having a spiritual aspect to their life as well as a material aspect? I don't know. I guess everyone is different. But this is how we get back into the trusting in nature, trust in nature. My last episode, I talked about go where you are called. I'd say that's a huge part of my life. Not just going, but also doing. Do what you're called to do. Meet with who you're called to meet with. All of that type of thing. It's just listening to your inner guidance, but it's also really just trusting in nature. I could talk about a lot of different examples in my life that I'm putting maybe more trust in nature than I even realize at this point, because I'm becoming so used to it. But even with the example on that previous episode about taking that flight from Kathmandu to Pokhara a few weeks after the same flight crashed and nobody survived. Trusting in nature. I knew I was supposed to take that flight. I knew I wasn't going to crash. Maybe that seems normal to you, but it was something that I had to do to get over something, to move through something. And it required a lot of trust in nature. I think I keep saying this so much because, as I stated before, so much of the world, an unbalanced, larger portion of the world is focused on the material. And to trust in nature, you actually need to have some kind of awareness of your spiritual nature. Because trusting in nature doesn't just mean trusting in nature in like the natural sense, like the rocks and the trees and the weather and the wind. That's kind of a micro sense. In the macro sense, trusting in nature means trusting in the universe, trusting in God, higher power, creator. And on a deeper level, knowing that there is a current, some sort of cosmic current that is directing this whole play, this whole production called Earth in 2023. And that even though we pass through a veil for our souls to incarnate into these human bodies for this lifetime, and we don't remember what the plan is, or maybe our souls weren't even allowed to be privy to that whole plan before we incarnated, there is one. There is one. I find that the more that I can move towards balance in all respects, the more that I'm allowed to see that plan. Glimpses, little pieces of the puzzle. But it is a puzzle. It's not just nothing, right? There is a puzzle. And so because there's a puzzle, there are pieces to the puzzle. And when you're ready, you get given more pieces. And for me, I find that every time I can take a step towards trusting in nature, I become more deserving of more pieces. I'm trusting in the cosmic route, even if I don't remember what it is. I'm not perfect at this. All of this is a journey for me, just like we're all on our journeys. I'm really glad that nature allowed me to come on this journey. And I say nature because I see my guides and my angels as part of nature, as part of cosmic nature. And it wasn't my idea to travel. It was theirs. As interesting and weird maybe and strange as that sounds, it wasn't my idea. And in fact, as I've said, the majority of things that I do these days are because I'm listening to what my soul and my high self and my guidance that is helping that move forward. So I am going to leave it there for today. I am ready to return to the West. That dropped in a few days ago, maybe about a week ago, when it was just like, okay, yes, I'm ready, which feels really good. As a little inside look at how my episodes are recorded when I'm traveling, I would love to share with you right now where I'm recording from. And I wonder if in the background you can hear club music, because that's what it sounds like to me. Hopefully you can't, but maybe you can. But I just wanted to take this moment to share the sometimes very unusual places I need to record my episodes while I'm traveling. I happen to be at a hotel that decided to have a beach party on a Tuesday evening here in Sri Lanka. And there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm sitting in the bathroom because it's the furthest away from the balcony where all the noise is. And I have a comforter all around me so I can try to block out both the noise and reduce the echo of this recording. But somehow I feel like this is going to be a more echoey recording than usual. So please do forgive that. And please enjoy the image of me sitting on my hotel bathroom floor, surrounded in one of the bed's comforters. Not the most unusual place that I've had to record an episode, actually, but definitely the most interesting of this trip so far. So as always, listeners, thank you for tuning in. I love to hear from you if you feel like emailing. I also love to share more with you, bonus content-wise, clearing-wise, event-wise, on my Patreon at patreon.com/letsgetmeta. And until next time, please stay positive, stay safe, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. If you are ready to raise your vibration, you might enjoy our free Let's Get Meta Master Clearing. To receive the Master Clearing or to learn more about the podcast, visit letsgetmeta.com. We like to share metaphysical stories and answer spiritual questions on the podcast. If you have a metaphysical experience you would like to share or have a spiritual question you would like to have answered, please send an email to info@letsgetmeta.com. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be an angel donor to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.